Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I tell you, many kings and prophets have desired to see what you see, and have not seen it. To hear what you hear, and have not heard it. I thank you, Father, for hiding these things from the learned and the wise, and revealing them to the innocent and the simple.
Historic winter floods have killed at least 22 people this week in the Midwest. Nearly a foot of rain caused the Mississippi River to rise toward record levels, along with the Merrimack River and nearly a half dozen others in the region.
Over the next 12 hours, the Mississippi River is expected to crest in St. Louis at 42.5 feet, nearly 12 feet above flood stage. Southwest of St. Louis, Missouri, towns are underwater. Roads look like rivers, and homes, some of them are nearly submerged.
We're still at a flood stage of 42.31 feet, so it's going to go down, but that's a lot of water the levee's holding right now.
In Arnold, Missouri, hundreds of people find themselves this New Year's Day without a home, and temperatures are now dropping below freezing. Overnight, the floodwaters snarled traffic for miles, and today, Missouri's busy I-55 became the second major interstate to close this week. Gene Liston was stuck in the middle of it.
There's nowhere you can go, you know? I mean, it's water, but, you know, if there's enough of it, you can't do anything.
Statewide, more than 12 people have been killed due to the extreme flooding. It has washed away homes, highways.
That is Highway 141.
And shut down water treatment plants. Steve Stanger is the executive of St. Louis County. How many miles do you estimate are underwater?
It would be difficult to estimate that, but very near us right now, there are about 7 miles underwater, right where we're standing.
That should be dry.
That should be dry.
Back in the city of Arnold, Police Chief Robert Shockey says the worst may be yet to come.
We're to the point now that the sandbagging, it's not going to hold it back. We're going to lose probably anywhere from 100 to 150 new homes will be affected by this flood, if not more.
Back here in St. Louis County, where we are, despite the massive flooding, the county executive says not one person has been hurt or killed since the flooding started.
California has its own severe weather worries tonight. 4 El Nino-fueled storms are on the way. As Carter Evans reports, the impact of El Nino is already being felt around the world.
The significant snowpack measured in California's Sierra Nevada this week is a welcome sign. But going from severe drought to floods and mudslides is also a concern, says NASA climatologist Josh Willis.
We definitely see big extremes whenever there's a giant El Nino like this.
The latest satellite image showing the warming of water in the eastern Pacific is almost identical to the 1997 El Nino, which caused significant flooding across much of California. This El Nino is already responsible for the warm northeast winter and deadly weather in the south.
During El Nino years, we tend to see a very active December and tornadoes late in the year.
The weather phenomenon is also causing flooding in South America and drought-related famine in parts of Africa. But the worst is yet to come, says Noel Arenas with the relief organization Oxfam.
The UN estimates that around 87 million people will require humanitarian assistance as a consequence of El Nino in 2016.
And in drought-stricken California, El Nino's rain will only be welcome if it doesn't come all at once.
Now to the intense manhunt underway in Israel this morning for the gunman who opened fire yesterday outside a bar in Tel Aviv, killing 2 people. 3 others were wounded.
Security video from a grocery store shows the gunman calmly shopping for food moments before the attack. He then places his black backpack in a cart, pulls out a machine gun, and leaves the store shooting anyone in sight. Security video from a packed bar nearby shows patrons taking cover as the gunman sprays the area with gunfire. Seconds later, a survivor stands up. The attack rattled central Tel Aviv's busy commercial district as people celebrated New Year's Day. Israeli police say 2 people were killed and at least 7 injured. "We were shaking, hiding in the storage. We leaned against the door so they could not break in," said Asnat David. Hundreds of police scoured the streets and nearby buildings, searching for the gunman who got away. Police have not released the identity of the attacker, but said people who knew him recognized him in the video and called authorities. The exact motive of the shooting is unclear, but follows a recent wave of violence carried out by Palestinians using knives, cars, and in some cases guns to kill more than 20 Israelis since October. 138 Palestinians were also killed, most while carrying out attacks. Just yesterday morning, Israel handed over the bodies of 23 of those Palestinians in an apparent move to ease tensions. Within hours, the New Year's Day attacker opened fire.
Tensions are climbing between Russia and the United States, with President Vladimir Putin naming the U.S. as one of the threats to national security. Putin signed the new Russian security strategy on New Year's Eve. The newly signed Strategy of National Security of Russian Federation replaces a similar document endorsed in 2009 by the then president. Based on the document, Russia's independent domestic and international policy has caused counteraction from the U.S. and its allies. It says those countries are striving to retain their dominance in global affairs, which is likely to lead to political, economic, military, and informational pressure on Russia. The document also considers NATO's expansion as a threat to Russia's national security. Daesh Takfiri terrorists have launched fresh attacks in the western Iraqi city of Ramadi just days after government troops pushed them out of the city center. According to army sources, terrorists targeted security forces on the outskirts of Ramadi with 7 car bombs. Officials have reported casualties among government troops, but couldn't provide a specific figure. They also said that Iraqi forces have repelled terrorist attacks. The army liberated Ramadi, the capital of Anbar province, from Daesh on Sunday, following weeks of intense fighting. Iraqi forces are now engaged in mop-up operations as terrorists are still holed up in parts of the city.
Today, Saudi Arabia cut ties with Iran, giving Iranian diplomats 48 hours to leave the kingdom. It follows the storming of the Saudi embassy in Iran this weekend. These two Middle East power players, Saudi Arabia dominated by Sunni Muslims and Iran dominated by Shiite Muslims, are separated by the Persian Gulf and a religious divide that goes back 1,400 years. But the rift appears to have reached a new and dangerous level. Yesterday, the Saudis executed 47 people, including a prominent Shiite cleric.
Saudi Arabia's execution of Nimr al-Nimr has inflamed a centuries-old conflict between Sunni and Shiite Muslims. Saudi Arabia severed diplomatic ties with Shiite-dominated Iran on Sunday after an irate mob ransacked the Saudi Arabian embassy in the Iranian capital, Tehran.
Oh, mashallah! Mashallah!
42 people were later arrested, though Iran has now also named the street in honor of Nimr al-Nimr. The country's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said that Saudi Arabia will face divine revenge. In Indian Kashmir, police used tear gas and rubber bullets against an angry crowd protesting the killing of the Shiite cleric. In Lebanon, protesters also targeted the Saudi embassy, heavily guarded by the army and police. Saudi Arabia is ruled by a Sunni Muslim monarchy. Nimr al-Nimr demanded equality for Shiites and called for peaceful protests during the Arab Spring. He was shot and arrested in 2012 and sentenced to death 2 years later for crimes including disobeying Saudi Arabia's rulers. The US says it's worried the execution of Nimr al-Nimr will exacerbate religious tensions. But Jeff, Saudi Arabia is unrepentant and says al-Nimr, along with the 46 other people it executed on Saturday, was put to death in accordance with Islamic law.
Tonight, an anti-government militia has taken over a federal building in Burns, Oregon. They're threatening a deadly battle over ranchers' rights. Several protesters were also part of an armed standoff in Nevada in 2014.
This is the Constitution. That's what we're up here for, the Constitution. Armed militia set up camp at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge headquarters. They say to seize land the federal government did not have authority to purchase.
It's the Constitution.
That building is the people's building.
How long will you stay?
As long as it's necessary.
Group leader Ammon Bundy posted this Facebook video earlier this week.
This is not a time to stand down. It is a time to stand up and come to Harney County. We need your help.
Yesterday, at least 100 protesters showed up to support Dwight Hammond and his son, Stephen.
Go Hammond! Yeah!
The men were convicted of arson after starting what they called controlled burns on their ranch in 2001 and 2006. They served time, but a judge recently ordered the two back to prison for about 4 more years.
Don't know what to say. It just seems like a little overreach for having burned 127 acres.
The two say the Bundys don't speak for them, and they plan to surrender peacefully tomorrow.
We're here to stand up for our brothers and sisters and show the world, show America that we stick together.
The protest spread to the nearest wildlife refuge.
Get out of here, you coward!
Ammon Bundy's father, Cliven, had his own legal dispute with federal officials over grazing permits in Nevada in 2014. That developed into a confrontation between militia members and law enforcement. Now Ammon Bundy says the militiamen plan to occupy this wildlife refuge for years until Harney County residents can claim their rights to the land.
When government steps outside of its bounds that the people have given it, that it is the duty of the people to put that government back in its place.
It's unclear how many are in the militia group, but members say using weapons is not out of the question if authorities try to force them out.
ISIS released a new video today claiming it shows the execution of 5 prisoners. ISIS had accused the men of spying for Britain in Syria. The video has not been independently verified, but it does resemble past videos from ISIS.
The men, believed to be Syrian, were shackled and dressed in jumpsuits. They reportedly claimed to be activists, but were executed as spies, accused of installing cameras so the British could observe ISIS movements in its Syrian stronghold, Raqqa, where coalition airstrikes have pummeled Islamic State positions.
This is a message to David Cameron.
The video features a masked man who speaks English with a British accent, threatening the UK and its Prime Minister.
And one day, invade your land, where we will rule by the Sharia.
And comes just days after David Cameron's New Year video message promised to continue the battle against violent Islamic extremists.
I want us to be very clear. You will not defeat us.
The video ends with a chilling appearance by a child in military fatigues threatening non-Muslims. The gruesome video is the latest in a number of highly produced violent propaganda messages aimed at the West and used as recruiting tools. Its timing may be no coincidence, coming in the aftermath of ISIS defeat in the key Iraqi city of Ramadi, says Michael Morrell, former deputy director of the CIA and a CBS News contributor.
I think this is a message to their supporters that they're still in the game after these series of defeats, particularly Ramadi. So I think that's what this is all about.
Turkish authorities say the bodies of 27 migrants have been found washed up on Turkey's western coast of the Aegean Sea. A Turkish security official says 17 bodies were discovered on the shoreline in the district of Ayvalık and 10 others were found in Dikili. 3 of the victims were children. Local reports say the migrants in both incidents died after their boats capsized as they tried to reach the Greek island of Lesbos. A Coast Guard official says 3 boats and a helicopter are searching for any possible survivors.
Saudi aircraft continue bombing various locations across Yemen. In the most recent attack, Saudi jets conducted several airstrikes on a residential area in Ma'rib province. Earlier, at least 1 civilian was killed and 3 others injured, and Saudi warplanes bombed Hodeidah province. Meanwhile, the death toll from Saudi airstrikes in the Yemeni province of Hajjah has risen to 12 civilians, including women and children. More than 7,400 Yemenis have lost their lives since Riyadh started its air campaign against Yemen in late March.